Hello, hello, hello. Average Wellness is back with episode number 8. And I always start off by thanking everybody who listens to the show, who has shared the show, who has followed the show. It's been an awesome journey so far. I'm going to try, like I always say the same thing when I begin these podcasts. I always say I'm going to try to keep it short, simple, and sweet. And then off to the races I go. But I think I can pull it off tonight because I really just came. I'm going to call this episode 8, but it's really just more of a check-in before we continue this journey of the Average Wellness Podcast. Once again, for those who just tuned in for the first time, my name is Earl Wilson, and I'm the host of this show. So the reason why I'm coming in sort of short tonight is just basically, if it's not clear who this podcast is for, I just want to touch bases on that a little bit, this evening. So basically, when you listen to the Average Wellness Podcast, notice this is not a witnessing podcast. This is not a trying to convert you from another religion podcast. I have no, motives or side motives other than the fact that I'm talking to people who are currently calling themselves Christians and currently know God, currently believe in Jesus. Now, for those that have a different belief system, or for those who are curious about, walking with Christ, I welcome you. Feel free to listen to each and every podcast. But the focus is really on the Christian body, because when you look around, you'll be very hard pressed to find people who would say they don't believe in God. Most people say they believe in Jesus, right? So we got the lordship part down, right? Well, I take that back. We have the salvation part down, but a lot of us don't have the lordship part down, right? So this is not a podcast where I'm here to beat anybody up. What I'm really attempting to do is just remind each and every one of us about what we already know, the tools that we've been provided so that we can win, and so that we can start walking the walk in a more pleasing way to God, and also in a more victorious way, as we walk here, on this planet. So that's really who I'm speaking to. So for anybody that's tuning in, that's really the main focus, right? So if you listen to some of my earlier episodes, I made a statement that we're in this dilemma where we have a lot of Christians who are not thinking enough about the things of God. And then we have those that, to a certain extent, is far too serious. Now, that's going to trigger some people, but let me tell you what I mean by that. When I say far too serious, we get so deep into the details, right? When we get so deep into the concepts of knowing God and believing in God, that it's making a lot of us a little judgmental. It's making a lot of us a little mean. It's making a lot of us a little standoffish, right? And you got to remember that we're here to represent the love of God to this world, right? We're not here to judge. That's his job. We're not here to punish. That's his job. We're not here to, we can't guarantee that just because we speak the truth to someone, they're going to accept that truth. Our job sometime is the person that planted the seed. So don't always expect an instant turnaround when you reach out to people and speak to people, because your job may actually be the planting of the seed. And you'll be surprised that when you speak the truth of God, a person may continue with their life for another week, another year, another 10 years, but you can guarantee somewhere in their mind, they think about you from time to time in what you said. And so then when God begins to position things in their life, it's going to be that seed that you planted that finally takes hold, and then someone else may be sent in to harvest, water, and bring that seed forth. So, don't always get so, caught up in, I'm trying to talk to this person, they just won't listen. You'll be surprised if God is speaking through you. You'll be surprised what you're actually planting inside of a person that you're having a conversation with, right? So, but back to this episode, which is episode 8. Last week I was excited. I actually had a title for the podcast, but so we'll see what this title will be by the time I publish it, right? But just to go back to the beginning, who am I here to speak to? I'm here to speak to those of us, including myself for a very long time, those of us who walk this walk. We say we believe in God. We consider ourselves to be a Christian. We say we believe in Jesus. And then if people say, okay, what denomination are you? A lot of us are going to say Baptist and Methodist and, Catholic and all these type of things, right? But we never really stop and think about what we are really saying or what it is that we're supposed to be saying and how we're supposed to be living. And like I said, I don't mean living from the point of view of getting it right and getting it wrong. I'm really talking about walking in the confidence of who you are. I often give an example that if you knew a very famous person, right, a very rich person or a very, well-known person, and you found out that you was related to that person. So not only are you related to them, but you're going to meet them next week at the family reunion. The excitement that a lot of us would have knowing that we are related to and about to meet a particular person would radiate your whole week. Right? You would be excited. You'll tell people about, who you just found out you're related to. And, and we do these things, right? Because these are tangible people. This is a tangible earth that we live on. And because of that, it's so easy to get excited about, oh my goodness, I'm about to meet fill in the blank. Right? I'm about to meet this person and I think they may change my life, whatever the case may be. But, we got to really stop and think about the fact that, when you accepted Jesus into your life, you really did become a child of the living God, right? So there's no millionaire, there's no politician, there's no celebrity, there's no one greater you could be connected to than having the God of the universe also be your heavenly Father, right? And he wants you to win. He wants to bless you. He wants to show his glory through you so that other people can see, right? He wants to test you so that you can overcome that test. And people, they marvel at the attitude that you kept as you went through these things, the strength that you displayed as you went through these things. The ease of when you lay your hands to something, right? It always seems to prosper, right? That's a verse in the Bible, right? Whatever you should lay your hands to, you should prosper. So, it's just the ease that you succeed and overcome obstacles that's going to begin to show the glory of God in your life. When you go back into the Old Testament, right, one of the phrases that they use all the time is, and they saw that God was with him, right? So that's where you want to get. But how do you get there? You get there by first accepting who he is and then accepting who you are, right? So this is not a witness podcast. This is a podcast where you're walking around with all type of tools at your disposal, right? You know how to pray, you know how to fast, you know how to read your word, you know how to pump yourself up on the way to work, listening to gospel music and worship music. You know all of these different things that you need to do, not only to have a relationship with God, but also those tools that bring down those mountains in your life. And so what's happening is we have these tools, but life is moving so fast these days, right? Hit show after hit show, hit movie after hit movie, hit song after hit song, social media constantly chiming with notifications, right? Your friends want to talk, your family wants to talk, people need your help, people need your support. And all these things are just swirling around you so fast that what you find yourself doing is often making decisions without using the tools that's been provided for you. And I know a lot of you have to sometimes think, it has to be more, right? They say God is real. They say, God created the universe. They say God loves me. But my life has to be more than just going to a job that I hate, coming home to a fast-paced and stressful house, right? Just to go to sleep, not get enough rest, roll yourself out of bed, and do it all over again, right? So what I've learned as I begin to get a lot closer to God, right? There's levels to how he begins to elevate you. First of all, he's going to show you balance. He's going to show you how to set boundaries in your life. He's going to show you the things that you're doing that are not serving you any purpose at all, especially if the purpose that is serving is a toxic result or a negative result in your life. You'll be surprised how refreshing it feels when you set yourself free from the negative things and the negative people that we allow in our life. Right now, that may be a very hard thought to handle. Why? Because it's your normal. It is the normal everyday that you've been having for years, and it's past the point of even feeling off track because it's actually your normal, right? So whenever you have, live your life every day in a certain situation, if you're living with a little, well, it's not as hard for you as people may think if you're living with a little. At the same time, if you were to become very rich, your first 6 months, your first year or two, it's going to be exciting for you. You're traveling, you're buying things, you're going all over the place, you're meeting new people, but eventually it's going to become your normal. This is why we can open up the news and see people that we admire, getting caught up in a lot of crazy things. Why? Because the life that they're living that you would love to have is their normal. It's not as special to them as you think it is, right? So what they do is they begin to seek out other ways to have fun and find joy and try to excite themselves because, they have awakened every day for the last 10 years to $50 million in the bank. And I know we're thinking, man, what's the problem? Well, the problem is that's their normal. It's normal to wake up every day in a house this size. It's normal to get in a brand new car. It's normal. So the test is even for us all because everything becomes your normal. And what we have to do is find a way to escape the cons of that normal while embracing the pros of that normal, right? So it's really time, guys, like I said, I usually talk with a little bit more pep in my step. You can sort of hear, I try to put a smile in my voice as I'm talking. But like I said, this is just more of a readjustment of the podcast, and who I really want to get something out of it, right? I really want people who say they believe in God to begin to have the confidence and stick your spiritual chest out and walk like you're connected to the master, maker, and creator. But maker and creator is the same thing. Just bear with me, y'all. Bear with me. But if he's over it all and you're connected to him, there should be a sense of it's going to be all right, right? It's always going to be okay. And so, once you get to the place where you really realize that, these are the blessings in my life that I've been taking for granted, right? And then you start getting to the place that when you do go through things, you're beginning to realize that if he's my father and I'm going through these things, then there is something that he wants me to learn. There's something that he's trying to develop in me, right? And I had a podcast that was very similar to this before. But like I said, I just wanted to retouch on that a little bit and really come back to, walking with that power in your life, walking with that confidence in your life, walking with that faith in your life, right? So what you got to start to do is you got to begin to escape from, let's see, what words I'm looking for? The rumors about God, right? You want to start to escape from the gossip about God. And you want to find out in your particular life, because we're all individuals in your life, what steps are you going to take where you can begin to connect to Jesus on a daily basis, at least a weekly basis? Like, how can you as an individual connect with him so that you can begin to feel his presence and begin to know that you're not walking in this life all by yourself, right? So, I've said in an earlier podcast, if you look around, the evidence of God is all around you, right? People can, they can reject it, they can deny it, they can do whatever they want to do, but you can take your time and just look around, and it is without the shadow of any doubt that God is real, right? And so then what happens is you have different religions and different belief systems where really what it boils down to is, do they believe in Jesus or not, right? So a lot of people believe in their version of God or gods, right? Because there are religions that worship multiple gods, but whatever their version of it, that's not the issue. The issue that starts trouble here is people's view of Jesus, right? Who is he? And the bottom line is, I tell people all the time, if Jesus is real and I'm right, then I'm going to be okay, right? But if I'm wrong, there's so many benefits to treating people well. There's so many benefits to being fair. There's so many benefits to using wisdom in your life. There's so many benefits for, when life is beginning to overwhelm you, it's so many benefits of knowing how to find a quiet space for yourself. Get away for 5, 10, 15 minutes, recenter yourself on God, and then come back out after being refreshed and refilled, and you can fight those same issues, whether it's family, whether it's your job, whether, it's anything, conflict or anything. There's wisdom and benefit in knowing how to step away. So that's really, what I really want to talk about, but it's really time, y'all, to, I know you have to feel from time to time that it's more, but you have been more than equipped to win here in this life. It's just time that you trust being good, right? So this is why I sort of want to close the podcast tonight, right? We live in a world now, when we look at a lot of the memes on TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, there's so many quotes and so many sayings that are going around, but really most of the things that's coming out is constantly reprogramming us that being good doesn't work, right? So even a lot of our spiritual messages that we're beginning to receive now, we're we're being shown the hardness and the toughness of being a Christian, and what we're not going to take and what boundaries we're going to set. And yes, boundaries are needed, but not in a defensive way. The boundaries are only there to keep people from bringing their situations, their toxic ways, their attitudes, their lack of belief, their words that can hinder your faith. The boundaries are there to protect you from that. But we're always free and open to reach past our own boundaries. We can reach over and be kind. We can reach over and be compassionate. And so what we're going through in this day and age is we have been totally bamboozled into thinking that good is not good enough, right? We get all of this advice on how a woman can get a man, how a man can get a woman, what it takes to succeed. I'll sleep when I'm dead, and we have all of these things that sound so good to human nature. But what I would advise all of you to do is really stop, look around, and see how is this really working for people, right? Just look around at all of the people that are 100% confident in the way they act, 100% confident, in the way they carry themselves. And now look at, is it working though? Right? Is it working? Now, a lot of times I have to be honest, it's not. And sometimes, I don't even have to look at other people. I can look at my own life. I can review my own life. I can look at my own decisions. I can look at all the different ways in which Average Wellness wanted to approach different situations. And at the end of the day, they usually didn't work. It started off exciting. It started off fun. It started off feeling like I'm hustling and on the grind and being ambitious and doing all the things that I want to do. But at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff just didn't work. It just wasn't sustainable, is what they say, right? It starts off well and then it just fizzles away, right? So what I want everybody to do is, for those of you that has the Spirit of God in them. For those of you that are still claiming the Christian title, for those of you that say you believe in Jesus, I want you to now trust it, right? Good is good enough, but don't get in trouble and try to be good without wisdom. And this is why people have so many horror stories, right? Because you're a good person, but you keep attaching to unwise situations. And then when things get out of control, now we begin to doubt God. We very often we want to ask, where is God and how could God? But we very rarely stop and ask, where am I? And why didn't I? And how could I? And like I said, I'm not asking you to wake up tomorrow morning after listening to this podcast and be the perfect person. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is it's time to become mindful, and it's time to become aware that God is unchanging. So that means most likely 90+% of the time, 95% of the time, and let's go ahead and keep it real, 100% of the time, the change that needs to happen is on our side, right? We got to stop thinking that the master of all has to bow to our will. He lays out his requirements really simply to understand. He gives us his advice, he gives wisdom, and so he is there. So the change has to come from us. I'm not asking, I'm not begging people to be perfect, to be the perfect person all of a sudden, but you'll be surprised how your actions begin to change when you become mindful, right? What it is you want to become, you want to be aware of what you're doing in your life, and what may be hindering your walk with God, as well as, just the outcome of things that we deal with. So I think it's time to trust it. I guess even better way to say it is, it's time to go from good to godly. And so this is what I would like to say. And as you guys can sort of tell, this is not scripted. This is not written down. This is just me trying to speak from my heart. But it's time to go good from godly, because at the end of the day, this life that we're living, at the end of the day, it is a test of your heart. And you have to make the decision to take the test. You have to make the decision to play the game. You have to make the decision to get involved, because this is the unfair part of this situation. You can lose this game by playing it, and you can lose this game by not knowing that you're playing it. These systems in place that are here to test your heart and test your integrity and grow you into a better person, those wheels are already turning. This is not something that you can start, and it's not something that you can stop. These wheels are turning. Now, a lot of you that have a good personality and a good nature about yourself, then you're naturally making good decisions, and you're being nice to people, you're being forgiving, you're forgiving people, you're doing all the things that are naturally good to do. But it doesn't mean that you're necessarily aware of what you're doing. And then there's people that's living the opposite life that are not necessarily aware of what they're doing, because a lot of us really are victim to the world and the environment in which we were placed in, right? So if you're born in an inner city where things are a little harsher, you got to come up knowing how to navigate that world. And if you come up in a world full of privilege and everybody telling you yes, and you can do no wrong because everybody want to be in your circle, then you have to learn how to navigate that as well. So it's just really time to make that decision and realize that we're in the game of life. The wheels are turning whether you know it or not. And the things that we desire in this world, because we have to get to the point where we desire spiritual things and desire to be used by God, and desire to be able to to touch the heart of people that you care about, the heart of people that God has ordained to cross your path, right? So you want to be that. But before we get to that part, let's just keep it real. Before we get to that part, there's certain things on this earth that we want, right? We want to be successful. We want to have a nice home. We want to drive certain cars. And I will submit that you all take a moment and look to the left, right, which I like to call the human nature side. And for those who have fully committed to the ways of the world, they often have a lot of things that you would like in your life, right? They often have a lot of material things that you would like in your life, a lot of respect that you would like in your life, a lot of things that we admire is just humans now, not godly people, just the human nature. A lot of things that we desire, people on the other side, a lot of them seem to have these things, right? And then I want you to, review people that you've known, that you know now or have known from your past that have fully embraced the God side, right? And guess what you're going to see? A lot of the things that we as humans want, right? We're going to still want the nice home. We're going to still want the nice car. We still want to provide for our families. I still want to be a strong protector and leader of my family, right? My wife still wants the things that anybody else would want, right? So that human nature part of us doesn't change. Where the test is played is when people have made the wholehearted decision to choose a side. Now, I shouldn't have to warn anybody about this, but when you choose a side, a lot of the benefits may be the same, but the drama that comes with each one of those are different. The consequences that come with each one of those are different. The ending of the story is going to be quite different, right? And leaving this world in a way that people remember you and can quote the things that, old Average Wellness said one time, and I'll never forget when she told me this, and I'll never forget when they told me that, making an impact on people. You can't get better than that. When your children are walking through this world, they're going to be young. They're going to make different decisions that you wouldn't make now. Notice what I said. They're going to make decisions that you wouldn't make now, but they are going to make decisions that you probably would have made, a certain number of years ago. So that's where the patience and the grace comes in, right? Because a lot of times we as Christians, we get to a certain level and for some reason we totally forget who we were before Christ. We walk our whole life like it's always been Christ. It's always been God. And then we lose that connection with people where we can reach back and help. Why? Because we don't want to revisit where we came from. But your power is there. The power to revisit and show where you overcame and show the benefits of where you are now compared to the way you used to do it. This is how you connect with people. When people look at you and think that you're too far ahead, they're going to say, well, that works for you, but that would never work for me. And the only reason they don't know that it will work for them is because they didn't know that it worked for you. They just know where you are now. It's like when you watch a celebrity on television, right? Or in the movies, we forget about how long we've been seeing some of these celebrities, in front of us, right? Tom Cruise has been around for a very, very long time. Will Smith has been around for a very, very long time. Angela Bassett, just Carol Burnett, all these different people that you can think about, they've been around for a long time, but for some reason, when the new record is released or the new movie comes out or the new TV series comes out, we marvel at what we see now. But they have been around for a long time, right? So same thing with you. When you're reaching out to people, you have been around for a long time, but we're only trying to reach them from where we are now. And they don't believe that you can relate to them. They can't believe that God can take them away from their current situation because they don't know that he took you from yours. Right? So this world that's been put over our eyes where we think good is not good enough. Trust me, y'all, good is good enough. Good, go to godly, and then begin to apply wisdom to your life. And I mentioned this one time in my last podcast. I'm going to mention it again. But what I'm about to say is worth its own episode, in itself. And I'm going to just lead you guys back to the book of Proverbs, right? So why is the book of Proverbs so important? Because when you read the Bible, you're going to read about love. You're going to read about faith. You're going to read about being a peacekeeper. You're going to read about forgiveness. You're going to read about giving. You're going to see all these examples. You're going to see examples of people who trust God. You're going to see examples of people who didn't trust God. And you're going to see the example of people who oppose God. And all of these different stories are in there. But there's 2 books. I'm not going to mention the second book yet, but well, actually 3 that deserves a lot of attention. But when I say Proverbs, this is why I like the book of Proverbs so much. Because God knows that we come here young. We come here inexperienced. We come here trying to figure this thing out. And as you get older and you get experience, you're going to develop wisdom, right? You're going to hopefully learn from your mistakes. You're going to, not get excited about every little thing that's placed in front of you. So what was God kind enough to do? He was kind enough to write a book of wisdom so that if it's not in you yet, if you haven't received it yet, if you don't know what it is yet, then he wrote it in a book for you. And so it's like the instruction manual of wisdom, right? It's the instruction manual of what can bless you and what could hurt you. So if you can't receive it from me, if you can't receive it from other people, and you're not in a place yet where you're confident that you're hearing from God, then what he did was he wrote a book. So like I said, all of the other attributes are mentioned throughout the Bible, but there's a dedicated book of wisdom. And so no matter what you do, the reason why good is good enough, because it's not good enough if you don't filter it through wisdom, right? You want to be a giver? That's great. But you also know that you can easily be used and manipulated if you're a giver, right? So what do you need as a giver? You're going to need wisdom, right? It's also important to love people and to love somebody. Some of us want a wife. Some of us want a husband. Some of us want to be in a relationship. And that's a beautiful thing. But guess what? Without wisdom, you're going to choose often the wrong person, right? So there's going to be places that you want to go, things that you want to see. And I pray that you get a chance to see and experience most of these things. But some of these things you're going to have to check off your list. Why? Because everything has to be filtered through the lens of wisdom. So in the world of social media, we know about filters, right? We know that a filter can make you look older and more mature. We know that filters can make you look younger. We know that you could take a young lady who has no makeup on her face, put the right filter on, and I think the term they used to use back in the day, or maybe still use, is they could be beat to the gods, right? You can look like you have on a full face of makeup with the proper filter. So same thing. The key word is proper filter. Everything can look different. Every boundary can be set. Everything that you need to do can be easily achieved by just taking a moment, taking a step back, and using this filter called wisdom, right? And so like I said, this episode 8, like I said, by the time you see it published, I might not even call it episode 8. I might just say average wellness goals on a rant, right? But I'm not ranting in a negative way or a bad way. I'm just trying to remind those that say they believe to really go ahead and do that. See, I have the pleasure. There's some people that's called to bring people to the altar. There's some people that are equipped to bring people to salvation, right? But what I hope the Lord is using me to do is just remind you of the family that you belong to now, the tools that you've been given, the power that you've been given, and stop walking as if you don't have these things at your disposal, right? Stop. It's time to stop walking in fear. You have, we see people, celebrities with bodyguards. You have angelic bodyguards, all right? I'm not telling you to be stupid. I'm not telling you to be foolish, but I'm saying you can walk with more confidence. You have angelic bodyguards. I had a podcast called Do You Have Jarvis? God been created Jarvis. He been gave you the Holy Spirit that can give you insight and foresight and the ability to look back and learn from your mistakes. He's been giving you his system where he's trying to guide you and get you to go in different directions or stop this direction and go that direction. The Holy Spirit, that system has been here. It's just more exciting in a Marvel movie, but the concept is there. So you're fully equipped, but we have to take off the blinders that's been put over our eyes where you think being good is not enough. Right. And even I remember joking with guys a lot of times when you see marriages sort of get a little rocky. Why? Because usually when people get married, they are both committed. It's a beautiful thing. They're in love. They got married or they've been dating for a long time. And usually when people, quote unquote, get out the game, right? They found the one. Now that they found the one, they begin to relax. They begin to become who they are. And if there's any spiritual seeds in the, if there's any spiritual roots buried deep in their body, deeper in their soul, somebody is going to want those, they want to start to bear fruit now. Okay, say it that way. They want to start bearing fruit now. They're not in the clubs anymore. They're not going to every party anymore. They've done all the young stuff. I found a person that I'm in love with, and now I want to build a family and I want to get closer to God. And what happens is relationships, when they do that, all of a sudden they find themselves getting, feeling a little tension in the relationship, right? You're just trying to speak love. Your wife just speaking love, but the person's taking it as if you're trying to judge them, right? What are you trying to say, right? And the reason why? Because we don't trust our goodness. So since we don't trust our goodness, we use our worldly nature and the things that we've learned from the world, and we use all of these things to attract somebody that we have interest in. And then they have interest in you, and they use all of their worldly and natural ways to get your attention. And now y'all both in love. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, right? But then once the vows have been done, or would you be my girlfriend? Can we go steady? However people say it these days. Now, when that person begins to now want to transition from the worldly nature in which they build relationships, now they want to go into the spiritual things, and then there's going to be tension. I'll guarantee you, each and every time. Not telling you what I think. I'm telling you what I know. And you can just look at it yourself. You look at how you get your man, you look at how you got your woman, then you look at what you're trying to become, and then you're shocked that there's a tension. Like, how can she be mad now that I'm trying to be a better person? How can he be mad now that I'm trying to be a better person? Because that's not how you got him. So I only use that as an example. This is not a relationship episode, but I'm saying that's just an example of good is good enough. Go ahead and walk in the ways of God. Walk in the ways of Christ, the way he taught us to walk, and let those things build the foundation, right? Don't get a woman interested in you acting a certain way, but deep down inside, you hear that voice calling you. And so now you get the young lady. Now you want to listen to the voice, and the young lady's going, who is this? And vice versa, ladies, by the way. So build everything from the way he asked us to, so you don't have to go through these transitions. So you don't have to feel the rumbles and the trembling as you try to switch from one track to the next. Right? Don't raise your children for the first 13 years of their life, and now all of a sudden now you want to come in with spiritual concepts. I promise you, it's a lot easier to introduce these concepts while they're in their formative years, right? That 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, where their mind is like a sponge, as they say. I promise you, it's easier to put it in then, because their brain is in a position to learn the whole English language. And they can also learn about God. They can also learn about Jesus. They can learn anything that you expose them to while their brain is in that sponge, take it all in mode, right? Children around the world can learn 1, 2, and 3 languages all at the same time. That's how powerful the formative years of a child is. But what do? No, we're doing our own thing. We're hustling hard. We're working hard. We're going here. We're going there. I'm living my best life. And something else is programming the formative years of your child, right? And so now they start to get older, and we're going to hit them with, now you know better than that. Now you wrong for that. I can't believe you acting like that. Well, I can, right? I can. Because why? Because now that they're older, Now you're older. And so now that you're older, you begin to slow down. And now that you're beginning to slow down, and now you want to spend time with your children. And then you realize, I gave them the Xbox and the PlayStation. I gave them their first iPhone. I gave them a nice home to live in. I protected them. I was there for everything. Can you believe I forgot something off the grocery list? What is that? I didn't plant Jesus. God, dog. I knew I was forgetting something. Trust me, I'm telling you, that's how it goes, right? You feeling so good because you're doing all of the things that the world say that you're supposed to provide for your children, and all the things that you say you're supposed to provide for your wife, and provide for your husband, provide for the person that you care about, provide to family members. You're doing so much, but we forgot that one small ingredient, which is actually the main ingredient, is the spiritual knowledge that you have. We take for granted just that because I'm a good guy, they're going to be good children. Because I'm a good wife, he's going to be a good husband. Listen, wives, I'm telling you, one of the biggest things you can do is stop judging your husband and pray for him. Husbands, I'm telling you, one of the biggest things you can do is stop trying to go back and forth and trying to win the battle. Because one thing about it, you cannot win the battle with a lady. Now, you all already know that. Every lady listening to this podcast already know you cannot and will not win. Now, you can stand your ground. You can make up your mind. You can say it is what it is and do what you want to do. That don't mean you won. That don't mean that there won't be consequences. But the biggest thing you could do for your wife is pray for her and pay attention to her. And wives, pay attention to your husband. Look into their eyes. Yeah, their mouth is smiling, but their eyes are sad, right? They walking into the room, but they walking slow, right? They are carrying burdens, right? But we're so busy looking at the children, so busy looking at the friends, so busy looking at the relatives that your spouse is sitting there feeling lonely. And I'll get into that podcast a little bit later, when I was talking to my wife one day and she just said, I feel like I'm alone, right? And this is a household of 4 people. You got her. You got me, you got 2 children, right? Now we got a grandchild in our life. We got family members in our life. The phone is ringing all the time. Cousins are calling, friends are calling. You're doing your thing. You're taking a trip here, taking a cruise there. And then your wife says, I feel like I'm by myself. And then that's when you realize, good is good enough. But I forgot to plant my Christian heart into the situation, right? I loved her the way I've been taught to love her, right? I speak, we have conversations that we think we're supposed to have, yet we haven't prayed for each other yet we haven't done these things. Trust me, when you begin to walk this walk, it's like anything else. You will hear a person that finally begins to get in shape. I use physical training and diets a whole lot in this podcast for those of you who haven't heard me before. But one of the major things that all of them say, they say these 2 things. I feel better now at 37 than I did at 21 years old. That's one of the first things that come out. And one of the second things that come out is they begin to sort of regret that they didn't do it sooner. Well, walking with Christ is the exact same way. You're going to feel better than you've ever felt. 25, 35, 45, 65, 75, 85. Doesn't matter when you come. It's going to be the most freeing experience of your life. And you're going to feel absolutely awesome, right? But then you're going to start looking back and see all the things that could have been different if I was that person then that I am now, right? I ran, I dodged, I ducked, I jumped, I zigzagged, I did everything. And for each of us, it's going to be different. And he finally caught me at 27. He finally caught me at 33. He finally caught me at 48. And it's a shame that he got to catch you, right? Catch us. I'm sorry. It's a shame that he have to catch us, right? But he finally catches us, and it feels awesome, right? And you say, okay, this is what it is. When I was at church and it looked like so many people had something that I didn't have, that they understood something I didn't understand. that they had a grace and a mercy and a anointing and a calling on their life that I wish I could experience. So finally you get to a point where you actually feel like you're beginning to walk into the will of God, and it's going to feel great. But then what's going to happen is the same thing is going to happen spiritually that happens physically. If I had only done it sooner. Because if you're in your 50s and you decide to get in shape, right, you're going to feel great. But that doesn't mean that now you can go back to a university and run against top condition college athletes, right? There's an ability that won't get up to that peak anymore at a certain age. So you start thinking, what if I had got in shape in my 20s? What if I had got in shape in high school? What difference would have made, right? So same thing with your spiritual walk, y'all. You're going to sometime look at, what if I had known this sooner? But instead of looking at it that way, take all the things that you did when you were just doing it your way, when you were just freestyling this thing, right? Because God is good. You know, just because you went through something doesn't mean you was meant to go through something, but he is still merciful enough to give you a sense of realization so you can learn. And at least it doesn't go to waste, right? Your experiences don't go to waste. You can bring those experiences, you can bring that wisdom, and you can bring that insight with you to the new person that you are today, and begin to not only help yourself, but help others, right? So once again, I went on a rant. We're about 46 minutes in now, right? But I know we went a lot of different directions today, but this is episode 8. And I just wanted to refocus on who I'm really speaking to, giving you, like I said, that easy, practical way to start walking with God, start walking with Christ, start hearing from the Holy Spirit. But it's going to start with trust, y'all. It's going to start with not just saying God, and start saying, man, that's God, right? Not just saying, yeah, I believe in Jesus, but man, I believe in Jesus, and I thank him so much for being obedient to God's will, right? You know, it's going to, you're going to move from something told me to, yeah, Holy Spirit, I hear you. I hear you. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine today, and the subject of tithing came up very, very quickly, tithing and giving. And, people have so many different views on tithing. Do you give 10% of the gross? Do you get 10% of the net that you bring to the house? We're Christians now. We're not set by the tithe anymore. And what I'm here to tell you is, I'm not about to get into tithing, but what I am getting ready to get into is this. Instead of going back and forth about what man says, right? His interpretation and what we're willing to accept and not accept. You're going to get to a place where you can recognize that small voice, and the small voice say, hey, give $15. All right, Lord, I hear you. You drop $15 in there. Somebody say, that's all you giving, $15? And you get all the confidence in the world, because you didn't give $15 because you wanted to. You didn't give $15 because you came up with the figure. You gave $15 because he told you to, right? Then it's going to be on the opposite end. Everybody dropping their little check for $20. You got the little kids, they're being trained up in the church. They dropping their 2 quarters, right? Everybody's giving. And then all of a sudden, the person sit beside you, see you stroke a check for $1,500. Man, you must be crazy giving that kind of money to the church. Man, you have to give that much. That's more than 10%. You must be crazy. No, but you won't worry about it. Why? Because you didn't come up with the $1,500. He told you to give the $1,500. It's not the motivating sermon that the pastor gave. It's not the choir singing. It's he told you to. And that'll happen more and more as you get closer and closer to him, right? How could you take that from that person? Why did you forgive that person? Because I heard him when he told me to, right? Why did you stay away from that person? I thought you said you forgave him. Yeah, I forgave him. I don't have any problems with the guy anymore, but the voice told me to keep my distance. And this is the more that I want us all to begin to experience, right? We gotta stop talking about this big, all-knowing, ever-present God, and then limit what he can do, right? So I guess I say it like this as we go into almost minute 50. Make up your mind that he's real. And like I said, I know if you listen to this podcast, you're already a believer. But I mean, embrace the fact that he's real, right? Know that the true good is good enough. Because if you do the true good, then that true good goes from good to godly, right? And trust the system and look around. There are systems at play all around you. There are rules to the streets. There are rules to corporate America. There's rules to dating. There's rules to being online. And you see all of these different rules have pros and cons. But here's the thing, y'all. There are pros. There are rules to good. I'm not talking about the obedient good. I'm talking about just being good. Just loving people, having patience, being fair, trying your best to be honest. And if you do tell a little white lie, go back when you get a chance, say, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I know you asked me about this. Let me correct that. This is what I was really trying to say to you. Fix it. And then you're going to start finding out that your life doesn't have as many weights on it as you think. You don't have to look a certain way to get the girl. You don't have to be a certain person to get the guy. You don't have to be a certain way with your children in this modern day climate because that's what they say you're supposed to do, right? You can actually take all of these burdens off, walk it the way you're supposed to walk it. You don't owe anybody nothing but God. God is the only person that you're accountable to, right? Yeah, you got to respect your mother. Yeah, you got to respect your fathers and, your elders, your aunties, your grandparents. I understand that there's a social ladder in the world. I'm not saying that don't exist, but I'm saying at the end of the day, that no matter what anybody says, if it agrees to what God says, thumbs up. But if it doesn't agree with what God says, hey man, I don't see it that way. I'm sorry. Gotta walk my walk, right? But what's gonna happen is it's gonna free you. It's gonna take that weight off your shoulder so that you can finally start being the person that you feel on the inside, right? You're not living to keep hubby happy. You're not living to keep wifey happy. You're not living to keep mama and daddy happy, brothers happy, sisters happy, friends happy, fraternities and sororities and churches. All of these things are gonna happen. When you're your best self, then all of these people are going to get the best you. But they're not going to get the best you if you're still living to please them. That's the difference. It's not about not being good to people. But it's about not being a pleaser of man. And the Bible talks about that as well. You don't want to be a pleaser of man, because when you start to please man, then often that means we're going to displease, right, or unplease the Lord. Right? We want to please him, then he's pleasing you, and then you have freedom and happiness and joy and peace, and then you can share it to all these people that you've been spending your whole life pleasing, right? It's time to wake up every day and know who you are, right? Know and finally begin to let that person inside of you live. Now, those of you who haven't found God, it may be some more stuff trying to get out, and I advise that you keep that contained until you find it. But for those of you who are trying to contain your good because you think it don't work, right, and it's not politically correct anymore, and you don't want to be a lame, and you want to be cool, and you want to be accepted, well, I'm here to tell you, you can have a house full of people, 45, 50, 60 people that you know. And they would never, as you're being a lame, as you're being weird, as you're being whatever they want to call you, while you're being all of these things, those people are going to fall back. And then one or two people are going to step forth. And I promise you, and you can go test it if you like, and some of you may have already known this, but your house full of 45 to 50 people would never replace the one, maybe two true friends that God sent your way. Guys, you can keep chasing all the ladies, but if you can do it the right way, because you can get a lady without God now. Come on now, we go out there and do it our way, and then we go, what God has put together, let no man take. Listen, yeah, you can do what you want to do, but if you can be patient and let God send you your wife, I guarantee you, I don't know what your body count is, but they would not replace the one wife when she gets here. Same thing, ladies, with your husband. If God has sent you the husband, I'm not saying he's going to be perfect. I'm not saying he's going to check off all the boxes. But what I am going to say is he's going to check off all the needed boxes, right? Not all the wanted boxes. He's going to check off all the needed boxes. And if you can slow down and see the needs that he check off, the support that he does. Yeah, he might not do everything you see the guys on Married to Medicine and the housewives, and the house may not be able to go on the HGTV channel, but is he checking off the right boxes, right? So same thing, guys. Be patient. Do it the way God would ask you to do it, so he can give it to you the right way. And then you would see that, there's going to be a lot of things that you want, but what's going to be more important than getting the things that you want is getting the things that you need. And then you find out that he's going to give you the things that you didn't know you need. And now you can start walking your life. So, went far too long. I don't even think people listen to podcasts that run this long. I think podcast is more of a 15-minute world. But if you stuck with me, or if you hit pause and came back, I appreciate y'all. I'm about to go ahead and shut this thing down. You all have been awesome as always. I know that this was more of a rant, right? We bounced all over the place. It was just more of me just trying to get something off my heart to you guys to really start taking, seeing things a different way. And that's all this podcast is about. Sort of seeing things in a different way and embracing who you are, in Jesus, right? So you all be blessed as always. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing the podcast to those that you wanted to share it to. I can see the analytics. I can see the algorithms. I appreciate y'all. The different places on the map where listeners are beginning to show up is just, heart is just, pleasing to the heart. Like I always say, if you really, really want to support the show, this is not a ministry where I'm going to start asking for any love offerings or anything like that. The only thing I really ask, guys, is to just follow the show. In this world of social media and algorithms and things like that, the follow is a very important part of this thing of trying to, get more opportunities to be heard. So, if you haven't done so already, please follow the show. But if you just keep listening, that's good enough for me, right? I'm going to try to get better and better at this thing as we go. You all be blessed. I'll see you soon with episode 9. You have been a joy to speak to this evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.